what you see in front of you here. So on the left-hand side, we've got work centers. And then across the top here, we've got the time and your plans. So in other words, the work you have to do in each work center. So before you start, the first thing is to tell the system when you're not working. So you want to set in your day start, day end. And then if you run this block time, the system will actually create the recurring appointments for you to block the time that you're not working. So it's actually, so right now you'll see the system's not showing us weekends and evenings on the time scale. So all those block time recurring appointments are falling in here, all these purple ones. So if I just turn that off, the hide off time, so now it is showing evenings and weekends to us. So then you'll see here's my recurring appointment. So here's one for example, to block the Friday evening, and then here's one to block the weekends. So you can change these if you want to work a particular evening, or on some of your work centers you work at night or whatever. You can just go and delete this this recurring series, or you can just maybe delete it just for that one evening. So it's completely flexible that way. If you wanted to work a Saturday, you can actually just turn off that block weekends for that Saturday for that particular work center. All right, so you already saw now the time scales. I can hide the time that I'm not working, just makes it a bit clearer my time scale, and then I can zoom in and out on my time scale. So for example, now it's showing me every 15 minutes. If I go turn off the 15 minutes, so now it only shows me by the hour. So you can see everything's a lot more compressed, and I can see more days at the same time now. And so on. I can zoom out further even. So let's zoom back into 15 minutes. So to actually run a calculation, so the system, so it doesn't change anything on the screen until you click this button here in the top right hand side, calc. So it asks you from when, so I'm going to say yes, plan it from today forward. But yeah, for whatever reason, you might want to start planning next week or yesterday or whatever. So as soon as you hit, and I'm going to say go as far as planning 6 months into the future. So I'll just hit the calc button, and that'll actually arrange automatically for me all my plans on all the work centers. So that's all based on the due date that you've set on the job and the priority that you assign to the plan. So you'll see there's a due date priority. Now, all these jobs that are red here are jobs that are late. So the end date has gone past the due date. You'll see all these little lines drawn between the plans. So that's the dependencies. So for example, in this case, the printing here on my GTO depends on the guillotining being done first. So you'll see the system automatically then adjusts so that each printing item happens after the guillotining. So so if you wanted to create maybe, so for example, lunch breaks. So maybe you had a lunch break here on your GTO2. So you can just go and say new recurring appointment. We'll say starts at 1, it ends at 2. And we'll say it's every weekday. And no end date. So forever into the future, we'll have lunch breaks from 1 to 2. Now you can put the subject here just to remind yourself, lunch break. Oops, lunch break. And then you can label it. I like to label them with this off time purple just to make it clear that that's actually not a plan, but it's off time. So you can do similar things for if the machine's broken down or down for maintenance, things like that. So you can see again, nothing's changed on my plans. So if I want that to change, I'll hit the calc button. And now you'll see this, that's basically said this is now going to take longer because for this whole time, we're not going to work. So everything shifted more towards the end of the day. So now I'll only finish closer to the end of my day. All right, so I'll quickly show you where all these plans come from. So they've all been generated by the estimating system. So if I go and look at a job here in the estimating system, the important thing here is to link each estimating item to a work center. So for example, this GTO 52, so if I go into my press settings here, you'll see on the GTO, there was my work center. So there's a drop down that you just link each estimating item to a work center. And it might happen that you link many estimating items to the same work center. For example, in the finishing, you may have set up different items for folding, but it could all be for the same folding work center. And so I'll just show you where to set up your work center so that you get on the main Dolphin menu, you go to setup and then to work center. So you'll see the list of work centers, so you just add them all on. One important point to pay attention to is the hourly rate. See the hourly rate you enter here on the work center. As soon as you link an estimating item to a work center, it's going to copy this hourly rate onto your estimating item and override whatever hourly rate you've got there. So just be aware of that, especially if you've got it set to 0, suddenly your estimating item is going to have a 0 hourly rate. All right, so that's the one important part of getting stuff to end up in your planning is linking it to work centers. So once you've done that, so you can see you have linked my guillotine and linked on the finishing items, you'll link, so this horizon collator, for example, there. So this is linked to a folding work center, this is linked to my horizon work center, and so on. The other important thing is, of course, it can't go to the planning system if there's no time allocated to that item. So if you want something to show up in the planning, so if it's finishing, for example, you have to add a speed so that you can actually get the system to calculate the runtime for you. Similarly, if you add make-ready times, that'll add in. When you do dispatch, you've got to put a time per pack so that the system has a time. Similarly in the pre-press, so for making of plates, making of proofs, doing design work, make sure that you've got a time component. Otherwise, it's not going to end up in the planning. The other important point is, how does the system know these dependencies? So you can see all these dependencies are automatically put into the planning system. You can manually create your own dependencies, so that's easy. You can click on any item, say create dependency, click on another item, and there's a new dependency set up between those two. But you don't normally want to sit and manually do all these dependencies. So how the system calculates all that is there's a new field that we install for you when we install the planning, and that's this order field or production order. So in this case, you'll see my guillotine is production order 10, and then my printing production order 20, and then here on my finishing, for example, production order 30. So maybe in pre-press, you'll put those ones first, so you'll give them production order 5. So based on these production order values is how the system calculates those dependencies for you. So it comes with defaults that we set up, those 5, 10, 20, 30, but you might want to change this in the finishing. You might want to do your collating and your folding before you do your binding, that sort of thing. So in that case, don't make them all the same, but give them increasing numbers. So you can either change it on the quote, or like in the case of collating, folding, binding, you'll have a specific order for those. So in the setups, you can actually go and change the production order and put in the order in which things should run. All right, then if we just go back to the planning again. So, well, let's see. You remember I created this manual dependency. Let's quickly see how that affects the system. I'll just hit calc again. And you see now this item has suddenly jumped from there to there because the system you've now told the system that this item depends on that other item that you created the dependency for. So what else did I want to tell you about the planning system? Oh yes, manually moving plans. So these plans will be automatically shifted around for you. If you manually take one of them and you drag them somewhere else, so I want to do this earlier, you'll see it goes gray. So that means the system now won't touch it. So if I recalc again, you'll see that just stays in the same position. So if I go do this for a planning system or a work center where there's a bit more plans, so let me grab this one, drag it to the left a bit, so it puts that in there. Now nothing else gets changed until I hit calc. So if I hit the calc button, suddenly you'll see the system says, okay, you can start that one then, but this plan is then going to take longer because this plan has been started. It now has to stop to accommodate this one, and then it can carry on. So that's what that means. So in general, don't leave small gaps like that. It doesn't really make sense. Rather move the plans so that they're closer to each other. All right. Now, once you've got locked plans here, and say now it's the next day, so we go to Monday. Now, if all the plans that haven't been finished, so normally in this, the guys that are scanning will scan that a plan is finished so that it can come off your planning system, or you can manually go and click on them and delete them to get them out of the planning system. So all the plans that haven't been finished will now be moved forward to Monday. But also what will happen is these plans that are locked, I'll unlock them and move them to Monday, because otherwise they're just going to disappear off your calendar and you're not going to see them. So let's quickly do that. Let's pretend it's now Monday. So we'll calc, and now you'll see everything's moved on to Monday, the 12th. So what else can I show you? I've showed you lunch breaks. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for your attention.